Hey guys, this is Jess. Before we get into today's episode, I need to tell you guys about a great podcast that everyone should be listening to. It's called Behind the Velvet Rope. Now, Behind the Velvet Rope is a Bravo-themed podcast where host David Yonta, friend to many a real housewife, interviews Housewives, Bravo celebrities, and other reality TV talent. If there's one thing David knows about, it is housewives and pop culture. Some of his recent guests have included Perez Hilton, Tamara Judge, Melissa Rivers, Sheena Shea, Jill Zarin, Sutton Strack, Vicky Gunvalson, Brad Goreski, Giselle Bryant, and the list goes on and on and on. Really, David speaks to everyone in the reality TV universe, whether they are currently on a hit show like The Real Housewives of New York or haven't been on your TV screen for years. Gone but not forgotten is his motto. David has a relaxed interview style which makes you feel at ease, but let me tell you, if there's a story to get to the bottom of, he goes there. Just when you think there's a question he may not ask, he asks it. And the crazy thing is, the guests answer. The best thing about the Behind the Velvet Rope podcast, it's 5 days a week. That's right, a new show drops every weekday, Monday through Friday. I don't know how he does it. 5 days a week. So what are you waiting for? Subscribe today to Behind the Velvet Rope on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or anywhere else podcasts are found, and get ready to have all your Housewives, Bravo, and reality TV dreams come true. Welcome back to Hot Takes and Deep Dives. This is Jess, and I want to welcome back my boyfriend and the bad boy of podcasting. He's the host. You know him, you love him. He's the host of So Bad It's Good. Say hi to Ryan Bailey.
Hey guys, what's going? Bad boy of podcasting, it really is taking off just like I wanted. And it's like, how Michael Jackson, he proclaimed himself the king of pop. That's what I'm doing. I'm self-proclaiming myself as the bad boy of podcasting. And eventually I think it's really going to take hold and people will just assume I'm the bad boy of podcast. And I don't really even leave my room. So it's so hard to be the bad boy of podcasting in these times, but I managed some way to do it. Like I was taking notes on my computer earlier from my bed and I was down to like 5% on my battery, but I kept going. Like that's the kind of danger you're dealing with when you deal with me,
We just had a whole conversation off the pod just about our techniques on mics. Like I could literally, half the time I was like, I think this is interesting. I think people would want to know.
Well, it is. You get to a point when you talk, and I know you probably do the same thing, is that you really do get into it's almost like there's like the surface level of talking about the shows, which is amazing, and pointing out things, but then the actual how these things get made and then how podcasts get made. And that's what I'm really kind of getting. And I can tell you're already there, is that it's really fascinating to be like anybody's creative process, whether it be a meme on Instagram, and people like, well, it's just a meme, but it's like, no, something goes into that. Thought goes into that. That's art. That's magic.
So you have a very popular Instagram account. Like you have been Instagram is not something that I've been able to figure out in terms of how to grow it in any way. I mean, from what I understand, you really have to have a meme account, and you're lucky and you created a meme account and it's really growing in popularity. You're getting ads. Like you'll sit there and like, oh, this is me watching a TBS show, like hashtag ad, hashtag Doritos. I'm like, shit, he's getting paid. Like,
what if I just did that for products that didn't pay me, but I'm like just acting like I've gotten like, wow, Diet Coke sponsoring me this week. This is amazing.
Like hashtag TBS partner, but like you're not a TBS partner.
Exactly. Nobody's asked me to do anything. Like
you told me this. We were chatting on the phone a couple weeks ago, literally about this, just like the memes. Have you talked about like how you actually start to finish, how much time is involved in what you do?
It's insane because so it starts off just with stupid ideas. Like that's how it's always stupid ideas. And I've always had those. What I didn't have was I started this account about a year ago when I started the podcast, and I saw what other people were doing. And then I was like, oh, I have ideas and stuff like that, and I can put them out there. But it really is it's really kind of building that audience so more people see it. You could have the best idea in the world, but if it doesn't get passed around, nobody really cares. So there's like two types of memes I do. There's like really beautiful artistic ones. And that I would give props to Maritza Lopez, who is my digital. She makes all the kind of ads for my show, and she's so good. And sometimes I wanted, so Kylie Jenner did a promotion yesterday with the Grinch, and she had her ass up on the Grinch. And it was like, why are you trying to make the Grinch sexy? There's no reason the Grinch needs to see. So in my head, I started fantasizing about Kylie ruining other childhood favorites. So I was like, Maritza, can you take Big Bird and have Kylie's ass right up on Big Bird, and we act like that's a collaboration? And she was like, oh, I totally can do that. And then we put it out, and I was so proud of it. It's like what I call a slow burn meme, is that half the people don't even know it's fake. They think it's real because Kylie, probably would do that. So it's like kind of works on that level of like, oh, I think that's real and I hate it. Or then they're like, oh, somebody thought of that and made it. That's weird. And then eventually it becomes kind of funny. But you go through all these phases.
We are gathered here today to revisit and re-examine the history or the chronicles of Bravo through the years. And I was like, oh, this is something I can really sink my teeth into. And so I think it would be fun at the end for us to decide which one. We'll then do another like deep dive on. Like we'll watch the one,
a good idea.
Like another one season wonder, and we can report back.
Oh, that's a good idea. And by the way, you are the perfect person to do this, because why I'm such a big fan of your show is because you do actually the research. You actually learn something with your show. Like I think there is something to be said. And I really do. Like I don't have the brain power to put things together like you do, but like I believe that Bravo needs things like this. This needs it's like the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame in Cleveland. Bravo needs to we need to celebrate their roots. We always need to look behind us to be able to move forward. And there's no joke there. I really strongly believe anything that celebrates this stuff that has all brought us together, you need to track the history of these things. This didn't just pop out of the blue. And this even might sound sillier for the younger kids, the younger generation that are getting into Bravo now. You need to know why these things, where all of this comes from.
Do you think there are people do you think that there are young people, like there's a 25-year-old right out there right now that is just getting in to Bravo?
I pray to God there is, because I want this to continue. I mean, I really, really hope so, because I want this to continue. We've had this conversation before. I get so worried about all of these streaming services and Netflix getting into the game and all of this stuff, because I need Bravo to pivot. I need Bravo to keep growing. I need them to not just be like, we're the housewife network, even though Real Housewives of Salt Lake City is killing it. But I need them to pivot. I need them to be able to have their DNA in other avenues, which when we go over the history, you're going to see they started all over the place. So I hope they keep growing. But yeah, that's what I want the most, is for young kids to get into this stuff. I really do. I really do think it's important.
So let me hear a little bit more I want to go a little bit deeper on your own Bravo journey. So I remember from the very first time we met, which was during a recording, I remember you saying that you were into the Housewives from Orange County. So I want to disregard all Housewives shows. Like we're really not going to talk much about Housewives unless it's like super pertinent to the time period. Mm-hmm. This is really a celebration and an exploration, or what's it called? An excavation? Is that what?
Excavation?
Excavation.
Digging up the bones? Yeah.
Yeah, this is an excavation of the underrated second tier, one might say, not to like discredit their legacy, but like these are kind of the second tier Bravo shows. If Housewives are the headliners, these are the underrated guys. So tell me, like, what were your personal top 3 second tier Bravo shows, like non-Housewives shows that you were super into?
Well, so, I mean, this is because it probably was the first one, but also because I don't know if a lot of people know or care, is that I am an actor, and I started off as an actor, and I've been acting since I was in junior high. So when I was in high school, they had Inside the Actor Studio, and that meant the world to me. I mean, it was like watching him host. It was just like talking to all these actors and asking them these interesting questions, them telling their stories, dreaming about being one of the students at the new school in the audience, being able to watch whoever it was. I remember there was a great Philip Seymour Hoffman one that always has one of my favorite quotes of people say movies are ridiculous, or people say, life isn't like the movies. And he's like, but I dare you to get on the subway right now. You will watch more interesting life on the subway than you could ever possibly fill a screen with, and it always stuck with me about how interesting our actual lives can be if we just look up. So that was the first of all of it, because it was like the dream also was to be on that stage one day, was to be, asked those questions. I know that they were, because I used to watch Inside the Actor Studio was definitely the first show on Bravo that I watched. Yeah. I was so young. I was like, I remember watching this in my
in my parents' house. Like I was living at home, you know, because this started in the 90s.
Yeah.
I must have been like late high school, early college. And I do recall there are a couple episodes where you can see like not yet famous actors. Like
Bradley Cooper's in there. He's one of them. Yeah. I mean, definitely.
I love that.
Bradley Cooper actually, I believe he asked a question to Robert De Niro, and then they ended up working together, and that was brought up in one of the Robert De Niro interviews.
I love that. It's amazing.
I mean, and to see where Bravo went, it's really hysterical to that they had that show on, and they would even, you know, I think that's been on in the last decade, even, you know, before he passed away. The host, what's the host's name? Why am I blanking?
James Lipton.
James Lipton, yeah. And it was always the, you know, you'd ask yourself, like, what would you, you know, like, it'd be like, you know, Bradley, what do you want to hear God say when you come home? You know, like when, you know, they, you know, and like, they'd always be like, you did good. And then it would be like, what's your favorite curse word? What's your favorite, you know, those are always like, those always stick in my mind. The next, you said 3, right?
Yeah.
So this is why I really do think you get the best guess of any podcast is Blowout with Jonathan Anson. I was obsessed. For some reason that hit, I thought Jonathan Anson was the coolest. I laughed at him too, but I thought he was so cool, so suave, like always. And I even got the dirt. I even bought the hair products. Which is hysterical.
They called him a scissors wielding maniac.
Yeah. I thought it was great. Yeah. My ex would get she got the shampoo set, I believe. And I remember watching him on the Home Shopping Network, even when he was on. Like I was fully support of Blowout. In fact, it's one of those things that I do need to do a rewatch of Blowout, because that was appointment TV for me. And there's so many great second tier shows on there. And I think the third one that we were kind of talking about, I feel like it doesn't get its respect, or people have forgotten, was Kathy Griffin, My Life on the D List. Well, I mean, Kathy Griffin, My Life on the D List was something that was very, not revolutionary in any way, but you had a driving force of a 1-star show. You saw how funny Kathy Griffin was, because Kathy Griffin tried to make her way as an actor and had suddenly Susan, or you had her on, she has like a little cameo in Pulp Fiction. She has all of these things.
She was in the Eminem video for The Real Slim Shady.
Yeah, no, I mean, she's so this show was able to highlight, it was like the perfect thing for her career, because it was able to highlight how funny she probably is in real life. And you got to see the cast of characters around her parents, before her dad passed. And then you had her mom, and you had, her fiance at the time, who ended up stealing money from her and was a gambling addict. You had, Lance, you had one of the first appearances of Lance Bass on a reality show. That was one of her friends that she would go to eat Mexican food with. And she lived in the Valley in Los Angeles. And it was so funny, so relatable. I thought she was hysterical, and it really opened up the door for her, because then Bravo started airing her comedy specials, and she was one of the first comedians that was like more of a storyteller, and a storyteller in the vein of pop culture, which I think that's where she really celebrated, where it was like, cool, you're into the same stuff I'm into. And this was before podcasts. So this was something of like, oh, I would totally go see a Kathy Griffin live show, because she talks celebrity gossip and makes it funny. And that is something that I am so attracted to.
She was literally doing like live podcast shows, like in the vein of like what you guys do, like when you do the recaps. That's pretty much what she kind of pioneered. Yeah. That style. Just like she would craft jokes around it, but she was basically recapping like an entire season of Housewives, like Jersey. I remember Atlanta.
I would be curious what she watches now. I would be
Me
curious
too.
What her, I did see her hiking once at Runyon Canyon in Los Angeles. Got to tell you, because she looks very different without makeup, but like the same, but it's like striking. Like, she really does herself up. And it was like seeing she kind of looked like Martin Short or something. It was like weird. It was shocking. And I was like, whoa, but not like in a bed, just very, you realize how made up she is. But, that also leads into the relationship with Andy. I just think sometimes it's forgot, because she is really left out of these conversations about Bravo for the most part. And I really feel like she helped Bravo at a key. I mean,
she was the face of the network before Andy became the face of the network, for sure.
I feel like it was very mutually beneficial, that relationship, to a point. And that's why I would love to see an Andy and her, makeup, and it would be a great hour. Watch what happens live. It's and I believe it will happen. It's like, we talk about Howard Stern, me and you all the time, is like how he has that feud with Jay Leno. Eventually there will come a time where Jay Leno will come on a show and they'll bury the hatchet. It's just like this. Yeah. These are what Hollywood, and this is part of like Hollywood mythos and story. You need these kind of feuds to really drive, like, that's classic pop culture.
Completely. Okay, so my 3 shows. Okay, I've got number 1, Princesses Long Island. Did you watch this?
Got to tell you, this is a huge blind spot for me that everybody recommends. Okay. I don't know why I refused it. I don't know why, but it's like that is on everybody's list when they tell me.
The technical title, the way it's written, is Princesses: Long Island, which leads me to believe that Bravo thought that they would be kicking off a franchise, but this is the only one that they did. Can't you picture like Princesses, somewhere in Texas, Princesses, Miami Beach, like whatever it's going to be. And I actually just recently did a rewatch of Princesses Long Island, so it's very fresh in my mind. And essentially, it really is this kind of horrible depiction of Jewish people on Long Island in the long. And I saying this as a Long Island Jew, like you are looking at like literally what the show is made of.
Name dropper.
Long Island. No, literally, I did a thing where we go so deep on princesses. It'll be out after this, but something for people to look forward to.
It's insane how deep. Like you probably have like the next year of shows already done. Like you are so. I'm like by the seat of my pants every Tuesday night, editing through the night. Like I'm like freaking myself out.
No, it's just when like concepts come to me, and then there's ones that I'm like, oh God, what are we doing? Yeah. But anyway, so in the long like Bravo tradition of like offending the local townspeople, because this was very much offensive to Long Island in the way that New Jersey was offended by Jersey Shore.
So funny. I'm still, Jersey Shore is one of my shows just because I've watched it from the beginning, that it came on last night, the new premiere. And it's like, not even like, I just have it on the background just to make me feel like I'm, at home and like they're my friends and you owe that to your friends. But it is funny. Like you sold me right now when you said it's like Jersey Shore in that sense, but with Long Island. Yeah. I mean, listen, like Bravo didn't create the Long Island stereotype, but they certainly cemented it and committed it to film with it. Basically just chronicles like this group of friends, like almost like Housewives light, like Housewives post-college Housewives. Just picture that, like filled with a bunch of Bethany's and Jill Zarins, and basically highlighting how these single girls are creeping into their 30s, not yet married, and that is a huge problem.
I'm getting pressure left and right. You're 27 years old. You gotta get married already. Gotta go for a doctor or a lawyer, somebody who has money, somebody who can take care of you.
I mean, yeah,
it's wild. There's some wild shit in this show. Highly recommend.
Everyone judges me that I'm not married.
I mean, you know what I would always put in these contracts for these earlier shows, what I wish, the Bravo had the foresight to do, is that no matter what happens, you have to sign a contract reserving the right that 10 years and 20 years from now, you sign up for a reunion. Is that you want to see these people at 10 years and people at 20 years, no matter if it's a one-hit wonder, because you also want to see the kids from NYC Prep, like nobody's gotten them all together in one room,
Mm-hmm. Completely. Okay, my number 2 underrated gem, Sheer Genius. I loved. Did you watch this?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Okay, good.
Totally, yeah.
So I was way more into Sheer Genius than like the popular like Top Chefs and Project Runways. I've always been very fascinated with hairstylists. I've always found that entire industry to be quite fascinating, and it's often fraught with a lot of drama, and because these people tend to have like pretty outrageous personalities. If you look at like Jonathan Antin or Sally Hershberger, like. And in this show, the hairstylists were basically competing against each other in a Top Chef style type show. And Tabitha Coffey was the most popular. She was the star contestant, got her spinoff.
Yeah, Tabitha's takeover. Yeah.
You double dip, come and get your balls waxed and then have someone else's pubic hair all over them. That's lovely. That's revolting. And that's what you sell to clients.
Jonathan Antin came back to judge. Sally Hershberger, who is like infamous, like very famous hairstylist in LA. She's iconic for another reason because a very popular character on this show, The L Word, is based on her. Like, I don't know if you probably
I've watched The L Word.
Really?
Yeah, and I've watched the real L Word, which is the reality show on Showtime, which I was a huge fan of the real L Word.
That's fucking sick.
I once bumped into, I forgot what the blonde crew cut lady that I was like starstruck. I forgot her name, but I loved all that. I think it's been like over a decade since I've seen it, but I used to watch that every week. I loved it.
That's amazing that you watch that. But Shane on The L Word is based on Sally Hershberger. That's why she's a hairstylist.
No, I didn't know that. Yeah.
So I was always like into Sally for that reason. And then, of course, my third favorite show, obviously, is Workout with Jackie Warner.
Now, you had Jackie on, and Workout is something that I watched as well. Like I really, and that was, I believe, in the time frame where Blowout was on, I believe, because I remember there was like, and when you start talking about these shows, you realize the diversity, not in terms of, but like they had way more than just Housewives, because it was really before Housewives. So everything was all over the map, and you realize that when Housewives came along, they really anchored everything to this. But before that, they had some really like all over the map, and I would love to see a little bit more of that, or like, a little bit like they have their camp getaways and Family Karma.
You know what the difference is? Okay, Ryan, here's the difference. Those shows like Blowout, Workout, My Life on the D-List, those are all, remember how you described My Life on the D-List as like a star vehicle? Those were star vehicles for one person who was extremely charismatic on camera. And then we got to like watch them wreak havoc at work and with their employees and sort of take over. That's what's missing on Bravo right now. They're all ensemble shows.
Well, yeah, because even something like Below Deck, you have the Captain Lee, but it's just the captain. It's not Captain Lee's show, But you're totally right. And I feel like that is a definite decision that the brass made, or whoever's in charge, like over there. I know Andy stepped down from certain elements of what they do there, but it was a definite edict that got passed down, and I wouldn't mind going back to some of those, singular person driven shows and then have the cast of people around them.
My guess is that it's a direct reflection of, listen, Housewives, ensemble show, group of friends, ensemble show. And they just kept following that mold. That's my hunch. I mean, even look at Flipping Out, Jeff Lewis, star vehicle.
But totally. Yeah.
So, okay. So those are our top threes. And then what we did, we literally like made a chronological list, and should we just go through, we touched on a bunch already, but should we just go through and kind of just like observe how everything changed? And I want to get into like the Andy Kathy fight is like pretty fascinating. And there are a lot of like one season wonder Bravo shows, or a couple seasons that people have no idea about.
I would be really curious to, like, I pay attention to the ratings now on Bravo, but I would be curious what was a good rating back then. Like, I would be curious what things like Blowout or My Life on the D-List, what their top moments in terms of ratings, or what an audience would be considered good back then.
That's a great question. So I think I was looking up something before. I think in the heyday, some of these shows were getting like 2 million views an episode.
Which, by the way, that's amazing. I mean, you had Salt Lake City second episode getting a 0.63 million on their second episode, coming after OC, which got a 1.018, I believe.
Also, like the second season of OC, and then when New York premiered, it was like an immediate smash. But I think even like the second season of New York was reaching like 2 million views. Like I think they were like approaching that, like crazy numbers.
I also wonder what their streaming, what the Bravo app does. I would love to know just across the board figures on everything.
See, that's the whole thing. When these shows were originally on, you really watched them live. Of course, like DVR was around, but there wasn't like Netflix. There were fewer channels.
Yeah, I just geek out about this stuff. Like, I mean, you want to know, because I don't know if you're ever like this, but you're like, let me get in there. Let me see what we got. I can help you guys. Let's go.
I will tell you this, for the Princesses Long Island thing that I did. So that I was looking at the ratings, and the average episode of Princesses Long Island was getting around 900,000 views per episode, like regularly for the 10 weeks that it aired.
That's great.
That's what Potomac gets now.
That's great. I mean, that frustrates me.
And it was canceled.
But maybe what we need, and this is by the way, this is an offshoot of this episode. What we need, you're a big fan of SNL. I know you just had Rachel Dratch on, is they have that book, like the SNL history book.
I literally own it. I literally own it.
With the two authors, I forgot, but they're great. They're amazing.
Mm-hmm.
That's what needs to be done, is a book like that with Bravo and
an oral history
where you're going, and then it gets to the Housewives, you talk, and you just piece all of these interviews together. I mean, Bravo needs that. It is anything. There's a book like that for ESPN at Saturday Night Live. I think Bravo is just in that same wheelhouse,
I love that idea. That would be amazing if they could get like a Bravo exec or somebody at Bravo that could actually like seal all these interviews, like actually,
yes,
like
you would need somebody to sign off like that, but it's something that I would find so fascinating. And think about just the personalities you would be interviewing. Think about if you did get that Kathy Griffin interview, think about the shade she would throw Andy, it would be amazing.
It would be like Ladies Who Punch.
Yeah, I love that book too. I don't even watch The View, and I read that book. I listened to the book.
It's amazing.
Yeah.
I listen to audiobooks as well.
Yeah.
Okay, so Inside the Actor Studio, we talked about it. So that's 19. Can you believe Bravo has been on the air? Because I think they were re-airing like old soap operas for like a decade. The decade that Inside the Actor Studio came on. And then it was not until 2003 that their first, programming as we know it today aired. And the two shows that came on in 2003 was this one gay dating show called Boy Meets Boy and Queer Eye.
Yeah. And I remember the articles that came out around there, because this was groundbreaking. This was, for the gay audience to have this kind of representation was amazing. And they really, I remember, like, I think there was like a Newsweek huge article about it. There was like all of this stuff. I was a huge fan of Queer Eye. That was appointment television for me as well. And I mean, to this day, I dream about being on Queer Eye, of like somebody signing me up.
You would be oh my God,
you would be how to dress and all that stuff.
Perfect for Queer Eye.
I think I would just cry a lot. I don't know. But yeah, I mean, I would totally, that's what I'm looking for in life and just general. Anybody out there that wants to just tell me what to do and what to wear, and just reach out to me.
Ryan, did you ever see the episode of Queer Eye? They did a Howard Stern show.
Yes, Artie. And Artie got so drunk, and he was like, he started doing the slurs towards him, and it was like, whoa.
That was kind of iconic. Like, they had him in Vegas. Oh, this is Artie Lang, who was Howard's, he was a co-host during like probably like the best years of Howard Stern, was when Howard was initially at Terrestrial and then moved over to Sirius. Artie Lang, I absolutely love, like all his books, and kind of like a.
Do you even have the third one, the gambling one?
Yeah, I've read and listened to all his books.
Yeah.
I love him. He's had a lot.
I love him, but it just the back and forth with the. I mean, I hope he stayed clean during this time. He just kept,
Yeah.
But yeah, but when he was on the show, one of the best periods
he was like
ever. One of the best.
They had an entire phone. Like Howard won't. I think Artie has had like requests to like, I want to like do an on-air apology. At this point, this is like a decade. He's like, no.
It really shows you what kind of person and businessman Howard is. And it also shows you the fact that he was able to move on, not really speak about it. He did the same thing with Robin's cancer, and be able to really still push forward. Really, I mean, he's done that his entire career, whether it be Jackie the Joke Man leaving, into Artie, into, and now they never filled the Artie chair, so it's very.
I think that Howard is definitely going to resign, and I think he's just going to do the show remotely. He has the sweetest gig,
his basement, but he's not going out. He's not going out this way. He's not going to go out during coronavirus, and there's going to be pomp and circumstance when he leaves. I think he does want that deep down to be celebrated in that way, even though he says he doesn't. And we just won't let him leave. I mean, I don't listen to him as much anymore because of the lifestyle I'm leading now during Corona, but still, he is that show is family to me. I've listened to that for like 25 years,
Were you a big, or are you a big Letterman fan?
huge. I have one of actually David Letterman's last ties he wore on air. One of his costume designers gifted me. It was like this beautiful purple tie that I have. He meant everything to me. You know, I was very, I saw it live. Every time I'd go to New York, I'd stand in line for tickets. He meant, I have the Late Show shirts. I have he really a comic hero, and I love his interview series on Netflix.
Love it.
Just a very talented, troubled man,
If anybody who's like looking for just something to like they can easily sink into, Letterman's Netflix show. It's my next guest needs no introduction. I was telling you, Ryan, that like I love the Jay-Z and Kanye West episodes. Like should be the first two that you run to.
Yeah. He really like points out things about Kanye in a way, and he's very disarming. So you actually do listen to him. And I think he's just got such a great interview style that's very disarming. Stern the same way. And these are people that I really look up to. And I'm so excited, and you probably are too, that we get to do this, where we get to interview people and go like, ooh, I could have been this, or I could have been better at this, and really get to dissect, because we really love this stuff growing up.
He gets Jay-Z at the very end of the Jay-Z episode. He gets him to open up, and he relates to Jay-Z about the cheating on Beyonce, because Letterman had the infamous scandal when he it was revealed that he was cheating with that chick who like worked on his show.
Yeah. I don't think there are good men out there, but I think he's striving to be a good man. And luckily these were consensual, even though, age and all that was still disgusting. But regardless.
Yeah. All right. So 2004, the next two big shows, Blowout, which we talked about, and then Project Runway. I wasn't a huge Project Runway fan, but of course I've seen it here and there. I know all the judges.
Make it work. I was for the first 5 seasons. I was into it, and my ex was into it as well. And then I kind of fell off on it, because at the end of the day, I'm just not into fashion that way, but I am into personalities. I was into the judging at the end. I did like those kind of scenes. Those are always really, but I'm more of a Top Chef guy than I am a Project Runway guy, because I like food more than I like fashion. But you can't argue with what a juggernaut Project Runway was, and it really did elevate the network, the whole network, I think, and it really still is a good property to this day, just not on Bravo. The only thing that sucks though is that it's a Miramax property, that Harvey Weinstein owns this. That's the only really downside with this. Is a property that he owned. But, it really shows you how the breadth of Bravo's history, that I think people don't even realize they had this show, for so long, because you just associate Bravo with Housewives now, I think.
2005, Kathy Griffin, My Life on the D-List, which was iconic. We talked about that. Okay, now two shows here that we have to discuss.
Yeah.
Battle of the Network Reality Stars and Being Bobby Brown. Which one do you want to get into first? Because I have a lot to say.
I have a lot to say about Being Bobby Brown. Battle of the Network Reality Stars is a little bit of a blind spot for me. I remember it, but I don't fully remember it.
It was kind of like MTV's The Challenge. It lasted forever. It lasted 5 entire seasons. It was really about the people who they were able to get. They had Richard Hatch from Survivor, from the first Survivor. They had Gervais. Remember Gervais from the first Survivor? They had Jerry Manthe, who I was in love with on the Australian Outback. They had Nikki McKibben from Idol, who sadly just
passed away.
Ago,
yeah.
They had Mike the Miz from The Real World. They had Melissa from Real World New Orleans, and then tons of people from Big Brother, The Amazing Race, and they literally just competed against each other. It was just a hodgepodge, kind of what eventually the way Housewives will go, where it's going to be an all-stars version.
Which, by the way, I think Tamara let the cat out of the bag that they were supposed to do an all-star version with a couple cast members, but then Corona happened. Unless Tamara's just lying just to keep her name out there, but saying that she was a part of a all-star Housewives cast, that they were doing something and it got canceled because of Corona.
Speaking of all-stars, this is a little off topic, but I just want to get a pulse check from you. So I do have very exciting some personal news. I have officially started my Drag Race journey.
Oh, wow. That's huge. I have not been brave enough to start my drag race journey. How is it so far?
I mean, listen, I could tear it apart, but ultimately it's amazing. I mean, RuPaul is like out of his fucking mind, but it's amazing. It is truly amazing. And the reason why it took me so long to really like dive into it was because I was overwhelmed. I'm like, okay, they've had like 12 seasons of this show and it's so many phases, so many
That's it.
So many people.
It's like Law and Order. Like, I mean, it's like I can't get into it now because it's like there's 1,000 episodes.
And because it's a competition in the beginning, you're getting invested. It's kind of like starting from like watching American Idol or Survivor from scratch. You're like, all right, so I'm gonna have to like weed through, like you gotta thin out the herd a little. It's like I wish like every episode I could just start at like episode 5 when it's like whittled down a bit because it's competition. But the people who make it to the end, like I've completed all of season 5 and 6. Like I was heavily coached on like where to start, and it's interesting to see how like the budget increased and now the queens come in like with suitcases of clothing already made. Like they used to have to like make it on the spot and now they're allowed to like prep before they even like get there, like for runway competitions. And the reason why I thought of Drag Race was because All Stars is huge for Drag Race. They've had like 5-6 seasons of All Stars, which elevates them to a whole other level of fame. And it just makes me wonder why they've waited so long to do. Like All Stars is going to be, it's going to take over the Housewives genre.
Yeah.
It's going to be mammoth and amazing.
Well, with Drag Race, it's one of those shows that it was a blind spot for me. But the thing that you would always notice is that my friends or people that don't even like reality shows would be Drag Race was their show. They'd be like, this one girl I used to work at wouldn't shut up about it. Like she wouldn't talk about anything. She'd talk about Drag Race. And, I was like, what is happening here? And you always got to pay attention to something that really gets people that passionate. And it is one of those things that like, I give total respect to Drag Race. I just haven't it's the same reason. It really scares me when there's been that many of something to get into it. You're just like, oh, I think for people like us, it not becomes a headache, but it becomes a little bit of like, well, that sounds just like a lot of work, Well,
the thing is, so the warning I got, not the warning, but sort of just like a blanket statement that I got, because, people know that I'm, my friends know that I am, so into the Housewives. They're like, it is similar to the Housewives in the sense that it's endless. Like you will be fed as a fan relentlessly. Like, do you know how many drag race contestants have podcasts now, and now they're doing video shows?
I do see that. Oh, I mean, it's the drag conventions were huge. I mean that and that was the thing. I think I said on one of my earlier episodes is I've never been to a drag brunch. I see all these people. I've seen all these people that I follow. Well, used to, they'd always be at drag brunches on Sundays and it looked so fun. And I was like, that was one of the things is like, I want to go to a drag brunch and not because, but it just looks like a blast. Like I've never been to one.
That's
it's like
shocking.
It really is shocking. It's a complete blind spot because I had a friend that it was like, or a listener or something in San Francisco. And she was like, I'll take you to one. And I was like, heck yeah. But then Corona happened because it really is on my bucket list of things because everybody looks like they're having the best time ever,
Yeah. Oh, so yeah, whatever. That's a quick little Drag Race aside. But okay, being Bobby Brown.
Oh, so it's very interesting to look at that show in retrospect because it becomes even more of a tragic show than what it was initially, which was a really weird comedic show that you're like, holy shit. The Whitney Houston, like the fact that Whitney Houston was in this show. I remember I was working at a nightclub at the time and I would come home at 3 a.m. and I would put this on and it would like blow my mind because you had episodes where Whitney was thanking Bobby for taking duty bubbles out of her butt, for digging duty bubbles out of your butt, which is like usually when somebody's, on drugs and is constipated, it's, but it's like, you're just like, they were saying things that I was like, this is batshit insane. And I cannot believe Whitney signed off on this. I mean, now Whitney is kind of, in her passing is back up to kind of a legendary status, but that show let alone like the story of Bobby, you had these little, Whitney was a side character. And it was kind of like it turned her into this kind of tragic figure of like, whoa, that's Whitney Houston now. But then it was still weirdly comedic, and their love of Bobby Christina. And it was like the blending of the genres. It was a comedy, but then what we brought to it, the audience, it was this kind of like shocked sadness. When you watched it, it was just this range of emotions that they weren't even trying to make you feel, It
was kind of in the vein of the Osbournes and Newlyweds in the sense of showing the family dynamic of these iconic celebrities, these rock and pop stars. And Whitney Houston is an iconic like diva to have one. I mean, Mariah did do her own reality show separately, but it was very, very rare at the time. And so, yeah, it was very much in the vein of those two shows, but it would also show just like the total mundane life of these two celebrities.
Yeah, that really was it. Where you're like, well, this isn't glamorous. You'd be like, Bobby Christina.
She would break the fourth wall all the time. In the first episode, she pushes away the camera to like have sex with him.
Yeah, wheels are completely off on this. One time after they got divorced after this show, I saw them eating at Dan Tana's, Bobby, Whitney, and Bobby Christina. And it was like mind-blowing to me. But at the same time, and I think her estate got involved, and this is why it's so hard to find that show now, because I think they are protecting this image, and they are going to make a lot of money off Whitney in the future. And I think that is kind of a shot where they don't want that Whitney Houston out there, because I got to say, when I saw her at Dan Tana's, it was cool. But it wasn't like if I had seen her right after The Bodyguard when it was like, holy crap. It was kind of like, oh, that's, Whitney Houston. And the most recent thing I had seen her in was being Bobby Brown, You know
how you just mentioned that you literally, if this show has been scrubbed from the internet, like completely. Yeah. Bravo has told news outlets that the series will be like, they never even released it on DVD. And in the day, they were always releasing these shows on DVD. And they explicitly said this series is being kept in the Bravo archives and will never see the light of day, period.
Did they say why?
I think because of the descent into drugs.
I think it's out of respect, but I also do, and this is another thing where I believe business is that she has... when money is involved after this, I believe estates get involved, and Whitney had so many powerful people in her corner or making money off her that I wouldn't be shocked if there was like a handshake deal somewhere of like, if you do this, we will do this, this, and this,
Yeah.
That's pure speculation, but I know those deals get made a lot.
2006, this is a big one. We have the premiere of The Real Housewives of Orange County.
Yeah. I mean, this really, this really blew it out of the water. I mean, this is like just as pure character driven work by many people. This is, this is the promise of a Christopher Guest movie every week on TV. And, it really nailed it immediately. You had this amazing cast of characters, led by, Vicky Gunvalson, I think, or she was one of the huge standouts. But, in the first, we get to meet Slade Smiley for the first time, and he's like, working out on his body. You see Slade now and you crack up seeing that Slade. And, it was magic. I mean, it was magic in that sense that it was just, wow, we have not seen something like this yet.
Workout, $1 Million Listing LA, and Top Chef all premiered the same year.
Yeah.
2006.
Yeah, Top Chef and Project Runway. Those are kind of shows where you're like, you can't believe they're on Bravo in a way, because Top Chef, even to this day, I'm still shocked it's on Bravo, because it's like, to me, it's just like, it's a different planet entirely. It's like a different, like, it's like these are artists, like I wouldn't think of Tamra Barney as an artist, like I wouldn't think like they don't have control over what they're doing, even if they're trying to create their own plot lines, like on Vanderpump Rules, it still comes off really poorly. Whereas like Top Chef, you're dealing with artists. Like these chefs are artists. These Project Runway, this is art. This is something that they have trained their life to do, and they're getting judged on. So it's completely in like it almost feels dirty when like Tom Colicchio has to go to BravoCon or something like that,
it's embarrassing.
It's just, I know they appreciate the fans, and like, I love Top Chef, but it is funny that it's on Bravo, just knowing what Bravo kind of is all about,
Well, they don't feel like quote unquote Bravo celebrities.
No, that's what I'm saying. It feels like a completely. It feels
What network does it feel like?
Well, I mean, you could go with like, the obvious, which is like the Cooking Channel or the whatever those networks are, but it also feels like a NBC show in a way.
Yeah.
It feels like, this is what like Peacock should try to steal away, or Peacock, or they're all the same company. So I feel like they should transfer over, and I don't know. It's still in that reality DNA. So I totally get it. And it's been on for so long, but it is to me a very different than anything Bravo has right now.
Were you, or are you into the $1 Million Listings, New York and LA?
I've dabbled, but no, like not in the sense like I'm aware of Josh Altman. I'm aware of all of them as characters. Never got into it. It's not something that but I've watched it and I've always enjoyed it. Like, I mean, when I've watched it, it just never for some reason grabbed me. And now, of course, I'm watching Selling Sunset, or I was for my Patreon, which is, Netflix's version of that. And it's complete trash. But it's not made me want to go over and watch, $1 Million Listing.
See, I watched, and I am like a big $1 Million Listing New York. I mean, it's because I live here. I'm fascinated.
Because that's Frederick, who had the show with Bethany.
It's Frederick, Ryan Serhant, Luis Ortiz. Like, you would love, I don't know if you know who he is, but you would love Luis. Those are the main guys. In 2007, one of my favorite shows that it's like a long forgotten show that I don't even know if existed. Are you aware that Paula Abdul had a reality show on Bravo?
Very, very, very aware. Very, very
Hey,
aware.
Paula.
Very aware.
This show was fucking wild.
It was very wild. And in fact, Paula was a client at the acting studio I used to teach at. And there was a couple of coaching sessions during Hey Paula. So I was very aware of that show at the time. But Paula's a handful,
I mean, it basically documented the time when she was promoting an upcoming season of American Idol. And she was also simultaneously like working on a Bratz movie, which was like a cartoon. And halfway through the filming of Hey Paula, she gets fired
from the Bratz.
She gets fired from the Bratz movie. And her reaction, even though her reaction to it is captured on camera, she later denies that she was fired, even though they literally show her reacting to it. And she was also,
I mean, that's one of the earliest cases of Trumpism that I've ever seen.
Like, oh no, that didn't happen.
No, that didn't happen. I didn't do that. Yeah.
But she has like several highly emotional on camera breakdowns, and she would always blame the editing. She'd say it was creative editing. Editing. And she would also cry like a lot. Like,
she's a very, I mean, that is true to the Paula that I am very emotional and very, and it's one of those things where you're like, oh God, I was very happy that Paula Abdul got American Idol and then that it was such a hit. But then I got so sad when it they didn't bring her back this season where her and I think, was it Randy? No, her and Simon. I don't know, remember, but it was a bummer because you're just like, man, she needs that. Like, don't do that. Don't, let Paula stay,
She had she did have an iconic quote on Hey Paula. She says, "I am tired of people not treating me like the gift that I am."
I mean, that's a great self-help quote. I feel the same way, Paula. I mean, by the way, I think Paula Abdul is a legend, so I'm not even like that song with her and MC Scat Cat is still just really glued into my brain.
Okay, 2007, that was also the start of Shear Genius, which we talked about, and Flipping Out. So I consider this, I think 2004 to 2008 is what I would consider the golden era of Bravo, because as we creep into 2008, we have, sit down because there's a lot here. 2008, we have the debut of Real Housewives of New York and Atlanta. It's crazy that they premiered in the same year. The Rachel Zoe Project, Tabitha Takes Over, and The Millionaire Matchmaker.
I watched all of
this. This is a lot.
I watched all of these from the beginning. And, it's like New York and Atlanta, of course, we could go on and on about them, but I have such a special place in my heart for the Rachel Zoe Project. And I actually did a rewatch of that during quarantine to
How
see
was
if I
it?
wanted to cover. It was interesting. I mean, it was like, you just, you're watching it with the memory of first watching it. And like, I used to love her husband, Roger, and his fashion and his hair and his watches, and she cracked me up at like the stars, and you had the young Brad Goreski being, so it was very interesting that you forget that this was on. And there's like, in the first couple episodes, there's a flood at Rachel Zoe's house, and they have the gowns on the floor, and it's just drama. And the one assistant doesn't get along with Brad, who's the new assistant, and it was just this minor drama. But then you would have her going into like people to borrow jewelry, and she just had I love this ring, I love trying to remember what her big word was, like, to die for. Oh, yes. It's to die for. It's to die for. And it was just amazing. I love, this is a really perfect example of a industry that I know nothing about, but it's not necessarily like fashion, like Project Runway, but you can appreciate somebody with like this weird photographic encyclopedic knowledge for like, oh, that reminds me of a 60s Chanel like her and Brad would get to talking, and I'll be like, I don't know what the F you're talking about, but it's kind of like us talking maybe about reality shows or something. But I love when people are good or knowledgeable at what they do. Like, I mean, Rachel is kind of a joke too, and I got really worried for her because she was so skinny. But I remember there was a huge, that was also when like Perez was always making fun of her, and Nicole Richie, and that whole time period. But it was fascinating that was on. I mean, you had people guest starring on that show, like Kate Hudson, one of her clients. She was on, which, by the way, was one of the worst episodes. Kate Hudson, I think, was singing Landslide in one of the episodes. And it really like honed me in on like, oh, I know exactly the type of person Kate Hudson is. She's the type of person that busts out in a song and wants people to tell her she's a good singer. I'm like, I know who Kate Hudson is now after this one scene in Rachel Zoe,
Do you remember? So I only watched, I think, 1 or 2 seasons of the Rachel Zoe project, but I distinctly remember, I think it was after, so Brad Goreski quit, and then he later got his own spinoff. Do you remember a Taylor Jacobson, her other assistant?
Yeah, that was the girl that didn't like Brad.
Oh, so she's the one who didn't like Brad. Okay.
Yeah, she did not. She was furious when Brad was there, and they just didn't get along. And then they had episodes where they did get along. It was like a whole thing. Which, by the way, I would be so curious to talk to Taylor now and where she is. And, because she had a very short, I think, pixie kind of cut, like kind of a Tabitha Takes Over cut. And I just even get curious what she would look like now.
I think she runs like I think she has like a kids clothing company now out of LA. And
that's interesting.
Yeah. And were you into the Millionaire Matchmaker?
Yeah, of course. Yeah. Yeah, of course. Which, by the way, one Leah McSweeney was in the Millionaire Matchmaker. But you had also Gummy Bear, I think his Brandon Davis's brother.
Yes.
He was in there, and that was kind of a disturbing episode. I never, and then you had the 2 people that were her assistants.
Oh yeah. Wait, can I tell you? Oh yeah, Destin.
You've talked to them, haven't you?
Destin and I've never spoken to her assistants. But when I interviewed Patty, I said, "Oh, by the way, like, are you still close with those 2 assistants? Because they continue to work with her for many years." And she was like, "Oh, well, we can't talk about that." Like that was like the one thing that she didn't want to talk about, or whatever happened to the assistants. They must have had a bad falling out.
Yeah, I mean, I got to tell you, I didn't really love her. Like, it was just something that I watched.
She was a total asshole.
Yeah, and I was always like, who the F are you? And I would disagree with who she'd put people with. Like, I was like, I don't even see this as an art. This is just something you like found you could make some money at. Like, it didn't seem like.
Remember when she got in a lot of trouble? She went on Watch What Happens Live and said all of this derogatory stuff about Jewish people. Meanwhile, she is a Jewish person. She had all this derogatory stuff about Jewish people, the way Jewish people date, and the way gay people date. And she had to apologize. Like, Bravo made her apologize.
Yeah,
it was crazy.
She should.
And it was up until this point, up until literally end of 2008, going into 2009, that Andy was simply it's not simply, big job. He was simply the vice president of original programming at Bravo, and he had held that title since 2004. Now where we're up to in the chronology, this summer of 2009 is when he starts hosting the web after show, Watch What Happens Live.
So that started as a web after show.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it was called Watch What Happens. and he would do these little after shows after Housewives.
Because Watch What Happens was the slogan for Bravo.
Exactly.
Which is Watch What Crappens and all that stuff. But yeah, that was, which cracks me up if you think about those. That's what I miss is those commercials with the housewives from all different casts. Like they had the one with the Britney song, and they had the one, it was like these amazing, one was in a pool, one was in like a forest, one was in, it was like,
it was like summer by
awesome.
Bravo, winter by Bravo.
I mean, like, where's that kind of stuff? Like, come on, pony up. Like,
so also in 2009, so we have the official launch of Watch What Happens Live, which I think by the end of that year, or maybe it was in the following year, it eventually goes 5 nights a week and is a legitimate huge show. But also in 2009, we have the premiere of the first season of Real Housewives of New Jersey and a show that I need you to teach me about because this is my major blind spot, NYC Prep.
Now, NYC Prep, I did like a complete series breakdown on my Patreon, and it really is. It was a blind spot for me up until a year and a half ago, and really so many people, it's like Princess of Long Island, were like, how dare you not watch this show? How dare you? It's like Gallery Girls. It's in that same kind of...
Can I tell you, when we get to Gallery Girls, I'm going to reveal I've never seen it.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's these blind spots, but these blind spots that meant a lot, and but the funny thing was when I started covering for the Patreon, I realized I had seen it, but it was just always in the background. Like I just like, I watched Bravo.
Did you
and
like
I didn't really pay attention. At the time I was, I cracked up because of PC, which is one of the characters on it. He was just so kind of like this kid that thought he was just like God's gift to men and women, and it was like that really strong character. Watching it again, it really is good. It holds up in the fact that you're watching all these kids like try to act like young adults that are rich and their lives and things like that. So it was I really recommend it very much because it's a certain time period in New York, just like the fashion. There's one episode where they go to Fashion Week and they're so excited because the one girl sees Amanda Bynes and that's huge for her. You got Paris Hilton in there. You got the old BlackBerry phones in there. You see a certain level of fashion that has just gone the way of the dodo bird, which is amazing. And it's a good reality show. And it's only 8 episodes, and it didn't ever come back.
And it sounds like it was pitched as like a real life Gossip Girl, like upper East Side teens and
completely, it was also in the same realm as High Society, except this was an hour-long show as opposed to High Society's half-hour show. But NYC Prep really holds up, and that's a one where I really would love to do a 10 and a 20-year reunion because, one of the girls was just like the sweetest girl. There was this girl that was kind of like the public school girl, but she had a heart of gold. She's very sweet, and I'm trying to remember her name, but the rumor is that she's homeless. And like there was a Reddit, like somebody found her outside of a train station in New York, but nobody can tell is that, there was rumors that she got really into drugs. Her boyfriend was into drugs. And you're like, oh my God, would break my heart just seeing what she was portrayed as on that show of just being the innocent, I know
that there was one girl's plot line was all about her trying to get into Harvard, and in the end she doesn't get into Harvard.
No, in fact, that girl actually works with one of my friends at like not an MLM, but it's like I forgot what she definitely didn't go to Harvard. And I asked, I tried to get her on my show, and she was like, I knew that wasn't going to happen because but she's such a great character on the show. She's hysterical. It's like whether it be dating or getting into school, everything is like has to be a certain way. It's really strong characters.
At this point, so now we're going into 2010. This is when Andy is promoted to Executive Vice President of Original Programming and Development in December 2010. So this is like when he really had everything on his plate. And he's EPing all of the Housewives. Yeah.
I mean, he's killing it. This is when I'm very aware of Andy Cohen at this point.
So in 2010, we had The Real Housewives of DC, The Real Housewives of Beverly Hills. We had I think this was the first Housewives spinoff, Bethany Ever After, which we did our big rewatch of.
Yeah.
And we had the Kelly Cutrone show, Hell on Earth. And I'm like really big into Kelly Cutrone. I asked her to come on the podcast and she like didn't want to. She's like, I'm not really doing into PR these days. Like she like she's like taking a break.
Well, is she taking a break? She really pops up on Leah McSweeney's Instagram, very much so, to the fact that I would not be shocked if we get an announcement of she's a friend of, because the way that she keeps popping up on Leah's Instagram
do we know if they're being filmed?
I mean, I don't know. I mean, Leah's not usually posting any Instagram with cameras on her, but they're filming. Like Luann's tattoo appointment that was last week. That was a scene because 3 of the cast members were there. They're not just showing up to support Luann getting a tattoo. You already see that that's a scene. But Do we
know what that tattoo is of?
No, I think they're revealing it on the show. But I wouldn't. I mean, all of a sudden Kelly Catrone pops up out of nowhere. Like, I didn't see Kelly Catrone at all last year on Leah McSweeney's Instagram. So I would not be shocked, and I think it would be very celebrated if all of a sudden you saw Kelly Catrone pop up as a friend of this season of New York. That'd be iconic.
That actually would be iconic, because she's an iconic person in the fashion industry.
Yeah, but you also want to think of it as one cinematic universe, like a Marvel cinematic universe. So you want the things that connect to other universes.
Totally.
So that connects us then to MTV. So now we're all living under one world, like like we're all looking at the same stars. So now it connects us to MTV. Like, oh, can we go more and like connect us to TLC? Can we connect us? You want to make sure that all of these things, like we have the Bravo cinematic universe, but what if we reached outside of that? Like, what kind of mashups could happen?
Did you watch Kel on Earth?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Oh, wow. Okay. I watched this too, because I was like into her from like the hills and the city. And basically Kel on Earth just really depicted her life running the People's Revolution, which was her clothing company, and just basically showed her being completely abusive to her staff.
Yeah.
I have a rule that there's no crying in the office. If you have to cry, go outside. Okay? And if you're sensitive and somebody hurts your feelings, I don't give a This is not group therapy, so get over it.
But I just love the fact how iconic she is to a group of, primarily females are the ones that really, because the females are the ones that, really like go for like the hills means everything. Like I have so many friends that are girls that that show means everything to them, and Kelly Catrone is a god to them, like they would love to be yelled at by Kelly Catrone.
Yes.
Which, by the way, that would be an amazing idea for her to go on Cameo and just yell at people.
I wonder if that's a reality right now.
Yeah, probably.
Makeup is a real situation to contend with these days while wearing masks. And at this point, glamming up your eyes really is the best way to feel like a human being. What I found to really get my eyes looking great are lashes. Yes, I've officially turned into Tinsley. But seriously, this beauty company, Le Rêve Beauté, has an eyeliner lash combo, which I've been using the past month. The way it works is first you put on their water and smudge proof Mystique eyeliner, which allows the lashes to pop right on. If you can put on eyeliner, you can use these lashes. The best way to experience the lash system is by subscribing to the monthly Beauté box, which comes with 2 lashes and 1 Mystique eyeliner, plus a free cosmetic product each month. And it's customizable, so you can choose your lash style and liner color each month if you want to experiment with stuff. Visit larevbeauté.com/deepdives to choose from one of 2 amazing offers. Number 1, here are your 2 choices. Number 1, you can purchase 1 lash and 1 liner, and you can then pick a free extra set of luxury lashes. Or offer number 2, purchase a Beauté box and they will curate a free set of luxury lashes and Mystique eyeliner. So that's 2 awesome offers to choose from. Again, go to larevbeauté.com/deepdives. That's LEREVEBEAUTE.com/deepdives, DEEPDIVES, and use code deepdives at checkout to select one of those 2 awesome offers. I want to tell you guys about my experience with wine.com. If you're like me, I find wine or a champagne really is the best housewarming or holiday gift because you can crack it open that night over dinner, or you can save it for the next Housewives premiere, whatever. Did you know that wine.com is just the simplest and easiest way to search for wine? You will not find a broader selection of wine online or in stores, period. You can search by red, white, sparkling, champagne, rosé, you name it, or by region, and they deliver it right to your door. They even have this chat feature where you can chat with a wine expert right on the website if you need guidance on which wine you like best or if you have any questions. By the way, they also have an app which makes the whole deal even simpler. So if you prefer, just download the wine.com app from the App Store in either Apple or Android, and you can search and buy wine while you're sitting on the couch watching TV. If you want to try it out, just go to wine.com/hot takes and get $50 off your first order. WINE.com/HOTTAKES. So it's wine.com/hot takes and get $50 off your first order. So we get to 2011 here. This is the first year where only one new show premieres, and it's The Real Housewives of Miami.
I wonder why only one. I wonder, like, it seems like if Andy got into development in 2010, does that mean that's why 2012 was so packed because it took that year to start all those things?
Yes, that's what I'm thinking. Because once we get to 2012, there's a lot going on. There's $1 Million Listing spins off to New York. You got Shahs of Sunset, which would go on for many, many years, including today. Don't Be Tardy, which inexplicably is still on the air. Gallery Girls, which is a one season wonder, which I have not seen. It's a Brad world, which I loved because I love Brad Goreski, and of course Kathy Griffin's talk show, which I definitely watched.
Don't Be Tardy is funny because I cover the new season for my Patreon, and it's just because nothing happens on that show. The fact that show is still around is hysterical. Like, it's a 30-minute show, and they manage to get like 18 minutes of content because what they'll do is they'll do wraparounds at the end of each episode. At the end of each, like before the commercial break, they'll show you 30 seconds of what you're about to see after the commercial break, and when you come back from commercial, they show you 30 seconds of what you just saw. So they even whittle it down where there's like, I got to tell you, like, there's got to be 17 to 18 minutes of actual footage per week, and but it's weirdly like a breath of fresh air because nothing happens. Like, you literally, like, if you just want to see moving pictures and hear voices, I recommend this show highly, like, because it's not like there's no drama.
Why is it still in the air? How is it making money?
I'm imagining Kim has some kind of like dirt on Andy. I don't know. Like,
wow.
Because even the ratings are like a 0.4 on that show, which is, so I'm like, I know that doesn't include DVRs and but it's really nothing. And they pair it with a episode from the previous week. So you got like an hour block there. And I'm like, no, move, like, once that's over, which should be soon, move Salt Lake City over to that spot. Don't have them follow OC. And it seems pretty easy. And I think that's maybe what they're going to do. But yeah, the fact that it's still on is hysterical. Like, the whole plot line of like 2 weeks ago was that their RV broke down, but then they called somebody out to fix it. And it got fixed.
I think this is around the time that the Andy Kathy Griffin rift started to happen, because basically he claims that because her show started this year, it got 2 seasons even though the ratings were low. And when it was canceled, I think she just resented the shit out of him that he gets to just continue on with Watch What Happens Live. And this effectively ends her reign as the face of Bravo.
Yeah, I mean, definitely. I mean, you have that like very public breakup, and she's very nasty whenever she talks about Andy. And Andy, because but speaking of Stern, well, Kathy Griffin was on Stern and asked about this, and then Andy's on Stern all the time. And Stern will always poke fun about the Kathy Griffin thing, and Andy always, it's we did a lot for Kathy, and I'm very thankful for, like,
Andy's very diplomatic about it.
Yeah,
but Kathy is like, he's a piece of shit.
Yeah,
like she gives zero fucks.
It always makes me, I always get curious about people that really tell it that their experience that forthright, because it reminds me a lot of Kris Jenner. Is that we see Kris Jenner as a character on Kardashians, but we don't really get to see the real Kris Jenner, because there's no way that, like, she plays like a lovable older buffoon in a way, but we don't get to see the business Kris Jenner. Mm-hmm. There's a reason why that family is the way they is. There's a reason why you hear stories about Kris Jenner killing stories on TV, TMZ, stuff like that. So you always wonder about things like that. It's like, oh, it's sad that we don't get to really see what the real Kris Jenner is. And I sometimes think that possibly about Andy is like, do we get to see the real Andy? And, I think in a lot of ways we do, because he is such a fan of these things, and you can see his glee. Even when I saw the Real Housewives of Salt Lake City on Watch What Happens Live, they had the whole cast and Jen Shaw was like starting it with all the ladies. You could see his glee in the fact of like, wow, this thing's going to fly. I love this, but I'm curious.
I think you get the real Andy on his radio show. I think you get the real Andy two places: his radio show and in his books.
Yeah. I've listened to his books. Yeah.
Yeah. I would genuinely love his books.
Me too.
And also so at the end of this, once her show is off the air, I guess in 2013, this is when Andy stepped down from his position as the head of development for Bravo. And as part of that, he would continue Watch What Happens Live and host the reunion specials. And he would continue to serve as executive producer on all the Housewives. Now, my question is, how long will he continue to serve as executive producer on the Housewives?
My theory is that what I think is that my question in my mind is how I feel like this might be getting old for Andy, in the sense of like, well, what's his next act? Like, is this where it is? Is this where we flatline at? Is this where he continues on with Watch What Happens Live? Which, by the way, I do want to shout out. Watch What Happens Live is the only late night talk show I watch now from a guy that went to Letterman. And he admits a lot of his talk show stuff, putting his parents on and stuff like that, is Stern based. He always gives it up to Stern. And I really genuinely enjoy his talk show. Love it. I watch it. I tape it all 5 nights a week. If I don't like the guest, I'll fast forward through it. But I do think Andy's got something else. I do feel like he's got something else in him. I would not be surprised if he has something planned. Of course, we saw that he's hosting the Reality of Reality 8-part docuseries that's going to be on E! So I don't know. Like, I really am curious. What do you think?
I think that he will remain as executive producer on all the Housewives. For a couple reasons. Number one, I think it's a lot of money for very little work. He's not getting because I've listened to him discuss this a lot. Like, going back to like the early days of the Housewives, he would talk about he would get hot sheets. He would have to watch like 8 cuts of one episode, and now he talks about how he literally watches like 1 cut of an episode, throws in a couple of notes, and they're like, okay. Like, I think he watches it. It's nearly locked. I think he watches it so far along in production that they literally probably just have to slap on the credits.
Well, I've seen him tweet things like, oh, I just watched 5 episodes in a row. You guys are going to love it. And
yeah, he's not watching like 8 versions of the same episode, though, the way he used to. This is now an easy gig for him.
But that's what I'm saying. It's like the Simpsons producers. By the, Simpsons is still on the air. They have 90 producers on the Simpsons because at a certain point, you're just collecting checks. You're just collecting checks. You are the face of a network. So I could see where, regardless, I don't think he can even say I quit as executive producer, because I think it's just something that very little work, so he'll always have that name. What I do wonder is, like, will the Watch What Happens Live keep going? Will he go to a streaming service? Like, I feel like Andy actually is a great host. I do think he is a good host. Sometimes I think he's a little lazy on certain reunions, but other than that, I think he's a really good shit stirrer. I think he's a good host. I think he knows pop culture. He's passionate about it. These are all things that I love about my host. I don't think he's like insanely funny, but he's funny enough. And, I don't know. So I do think there's something else left in him. Like, I just think if you go from like what he's done to books, to, I don't know. I think there's a third act here. I think there's something else.
Honestly, I think his third act, he's going to have another kid. He's going to have another kid that's going to take him away from, now that's like a full time, right now, like he has a lot, well, he doesn't have that much help, but like he has help with his son. But I think once you have 2 kids that are going to be like walking and talking and in school and a whole thing, I think like he's 51 years old. Like, he'll continue on tour. When things open up again, he'll continue on tour with Anderson, which is like a dream gig. They make so much money doing that.
He's only 51 years old?
Yeah.
Mother humper. Wow. Damn him. God, I was hoping he was older.
No.
Okay.
Remember he had his big 50th birthday party?
Oh, yeah.
I love Andy, and it's interesting to get people's different takes on him. So many gay guys don't like him.
Dude, oh my gosh. I have an interview coming up with this kid that is great, but I asked him his opinion on Andy. He's a young gay kid, and he said this. I mean, he was just like, well, I started liking him, but like sometimes I just doesn't feel like he really skirts the line, doesn't say what he really feels, or kind of, like it was very opinionated. I'm just like, wow, that's very interesting. But you're right. I hear a lot of opinions like that about him.
I think I think the older people are jealous of him. Like, I think they're jealous. Like, he did it. He like conquered New York City in his personal life. He has all these famous friends. They're jealous of him. It's the only explanation. They're like, I could do that. I could watch the Housewives and give notes.
I'm jealous in the sense that I think it's really cool, but I'm not jealous. I constantly think of like, man, Andy's got a cool life. Like
but it's inspiring. Yeah. I'm not jealous.
Oh, yeah.
It's so inspiring. Like, wow.
Oh, yeah, there's no part of me that's like, oh, damn him. But it's like, wow. Good. Like, even like he's going to Grateful Dead shows with John Mayer and so I'm just like, wow, that's so interesting,
Okay, so that's what happens with Andy career-wise at that point. And then we move into 2013, which this is a huge year at Bravo. We've got the launch of Vanderpump Rules. Have you heard of it? Below Deck, Married to Medicine. So these are 3 shows that go on for like a decade, basically. You have The People's Couch, which is it was successful and beloved, and then like regretfully canceled, and people still call for its return.
Created Brandy and Julie and, all the...
Emerson Collins, who I love chatting with. And as well, I think I mentioned Married to Medicine, and also Fashion Queens with Bevy Smith, who has a show on his radio channel.
Yeah.
And I love her.
Yeah, no, I mean, this is definitely a huge year. The People's Couch, I think, is a bummer, but I do think it spawned Facebook groups, podcasts. I mean, not the show itself, but just like inspired everybody to have a voice
Completely.
on these shows. I think it was like what we all were doing. We're like, okay, now that's giving us a voice and it's showing us. Now let's take it to the Facebook groups. Let's take it to the Instagram. Let's take it to the podcast. I think it really spawned a lot of people going like, well, these are things that can be talked about and laughed about, which is also kind of the Soup was really big for Bravo for a long time.
Yes.
In terms of it really highlighted these shows. I remember my dad's only real knowledge of the shows I watch on Bravo because he loved the Soup, loved Joel McHale on the Soup, and he would crack up. He'd be like, these shows exist, because he would play these clips from Real Housewives and get a good crack in there and made my dad laugh. Like, but that was huge. But that was like an offshoot of People's Couch, I think. I mean, vice versa.
Yes. 2014, we've got spinoff Manzo'd with Children, Ladies of London, Southern Charm, and then the first big scripted show, which was something they tried to do for a couple of years, Girlfriend's Guide to Divorce, which I actually watched and enjoyed.
Now, my friend from work, Alana Ubach, was one of the leads on this show.
Oh, cool.
She was one of the main girls on this show, and just is a delightful actor, and she's on Euphoria now. But like, that was like their first foray into scripted, and then you got Odd Mom Out after that, I believe, and
Imposters, which was great too.
Oh yeah. Imposter. Yeah. God.
I watched all those. I watched all those shows. They were all really good. Oh, and then Dirty John, I watched that too. That was really good.
I did want to mention this is where Bravo always like cracked me up, is just like, it would be like all these shows, and then it would be like this weekend, the Jurassic Park trilogy. Like, it would be like, where is Jurassic? Like, somebody lend you these movies and you just want, like, it would all be this sudden, like they would be playing movies that have nothing to do with, like, I'm like, wait, what is happening? Why is this? I don't understand why we're seeing Jurassic Park on Bravo all of a sudden.
I know.
All weekend.
Can we talk briefly about Ladies of London?
Yeah.
This is interesting. So I find it that like the cast members from Ladies of London, I mean, Caroline Stansberry, she's the most famous one, and she shares the makeup artist with Dorinda. That's the guy who's always on Runway.
Yeah,
very. Who just like smears orange, like he smeared orange over her entire body. And this show, it's interesting because the cast members somehow became very famous. And this is like a D-list, like these are D-listers, and yet they have tons of followers on Instagram. Like, they're still like kind of heavily followed. I don't know why.
Yeah, this is and by the way, Caroline Stansberry, I feel like did one of the biggest PR pushes to try to get on Beverly Hills this last year. Like, you always heard rumors about her joining the cast, which I think she was pushing out herself. But also Ladies of London is one of the bigger shows I get emails about to cover, that like there's a real huge fan base for Ladies of London.
Well, did you ever watch it?
No, it was a complete blind spot. It was like that was like a complete blind spot that everybody, it's like right in there. I would say even much more so than Princesses of Long Island, which
because this
like
ran
alternative music as opposed to like
yeah.
music.
Yeah, because this ran for a while. Yeah, I mean, the first season of it, I watched 2 seasons of it. The first season was very much about British tabloid culture, which I really do find fascinating. And then also, this is the second show on Bravo to have a suicide as part of the storyline.
Yeah, because you had Richard from Real Housewives of Beverly Hills, right?
Richard? No. Russell Armstrong.
Russell. Sorry.
Yeah.
Sorry, Richard. Whoever you are, you didn't kill yourself. Sorry.
Were you thinking of Dorinda's Richard? Balloon?
I did. Yeah.
Balloon
I have like 50 cents in Richards right next to me.
Do you think anybody gets that joke? Probably.
They certainly do on Instagram. A lot of people will send me. A lot of people will send me pictures of like pennies on the ground, and they'll be like, "Look, I found a Richard."
But yeah, isn't that great? Like, I really think like the second season, like, will Housewives ever be as good as like seasons 2 and 3 of Beverly Hills?
No, I mean, it was magic. I mean, but it was also like the first season of Jersey, or the season when Joe came on the show, Teresa's brother, that season.
Oh, when Joe Gorga.
When the opening with the baptism, like, you just don't get better than that.
When the Joes fought, when Giudice.
Yeah. I mean, it's very Godfather-like. It's very just tragic, Shakespearean in some ways, because you have the father wrapped up in this, and you have Joey Gorley. Come on, Dad, please! Like, you have like, why? It's amazing.
I do consider this to be around the time like this. Now we're getting into like 2015. Really, the only show that came out in 2015 was Odd Mom Out with Jill Kargman. But I think, and then the next year was 2016, was when we had the premieres of Real Housewives of Potomac. We had Real Housewives of Dallas and Below Deck Med.
Yeah.
I feel like this was the year of the Bravo podcast boom.
Yeah. I mean, definitely. I mean, this is the beginning of Crappens and all that stuff.
Crappens, right? And Dan. Well, Crappens, I think, had been going for a while, and then Danny started around this year. You know how I got into Danny he was recap. I didn't know anybody who was watching Real Housewives of Dallas, just in the podcast space, and I wanted to hear about Leanne Locken because I was so fascinated by her. And he was recapping Dallas, and the recaps were so funny, and that was literally how I got into his show. Was through his Dallas recaps.
That's crazy. So you searched something out that was Dallas related.
Yeah.
Gosh,
isn't that like awesome. It's like, really? It's like I would not be. There's no Google search these days about Housewives of Dallas.
No. That's amazing. That's crazy.
Know, right? And then the next year was when Summer House. Can you believe it took this long to get Summer House?
Yeah, no, it's crazy because you think of Summer House as, that's a prime real estate on Bravo now,
Mm-hmm. I'm so excited for it to come back. That's like it's around the corner. What? Something bad?
Okay, no. Well, so next week's episode, I have Ian Gelfin, the executive producer of Summer House, on my podcast. We had the best 2-hour conversation I've ever had with somebody that works behind the scenes. He's also a producer on not only that, but Family Karma, and worked on Real Housewives of Dallas this last season, because he'll be like, what was just really fascinating was talking about the care that it goes in, and just the, being on one of these sets and in the control room and knowing when you have magic, but at the same time your heart goes out because you're like, you love these people. These are these people you root for, and when they have a fight or when something goes down. And he was talking about a fight between Kyle and his fiance, and you're just like, oh, like when he like said he might have cheated and stuff, like you're just like, holy, but he knows at the same time these are the things that make great reality shows. It just a great man. I cannot wait for you and for everyone to listen to it, because it was one of those kid in a candy store things where, it just kept going, and he was so generous to give me so much time, because he was like, yeah, we can keep going.
There's nothing to say about Potomac and Dallas. It's like we all know all that.
Yeah.
Although in 2017, the launch of Summer House, I mean, I'm sure we all forgot about it, but that is when Jax and Brittany took Kentucky.
They really did, and I never want them to give it back. And I watched that. I
did not.
I reviewed it for something, and then I had to watch the whole season. It was like one of the 30-minute shows, like Don't Be Tardy. So that has that. You have the cast of characters, but you also have Jax just being a complete douchebag in certain scenes where he's like giving money so that one family member can have IVF. Like he's raising money, like just what he loves. He loves to be thanked for those things. He was just a dick. He was just like a real dick. And it was like that. And it wasn't that entertaining. And that's why you never saw a second season of it. The most entertaining part of it was Brittany's grandma, I think, Mima. And Mima. Yeah. And so, yeah, I mean, there was no reason I wanted to see him get a spinoff.
Enough said.
Yeah, well, it'd be an amazing of just like Jax. Yeah, I would rather see Jax cheats on Brittany and find different ways each week for him to like cheat on Brittany.
So where we go from here is it takes until 2020. It takes until literally last week for Bravo to have another hit. Like I'm going to run through a list now of shows that are kind of one and dones. Some only last a couple episodes until we get to the Real Housewives of Salt Lake City. So from 2018 to 2020, we've got Bethany and Frederick, which was such a colossal disaster. Like that was such a disappointment for me because Bethany is my number one and I love Frederick, and this show could have been so great and it was just a total disaster. You have Dirty John, Bravo's play-by-play, a show with the Queer Eye guys, Get a Room. They were trying to do like a whole HGTV thing and it didn't work. You had Mexican Dynasties, Texacanas. I don't know. I doubt these things are coming back. Backyard Envy, which somehow got a second season. This is the lowest rated show on Bravo, Backyard Envy. And the guys are actually very nice. And miraculously, it got a second season. Good for them. Thank God. It kept them employed. But these are not hits. Camp Getaway, which I don't know, and then the most recent shows, Bravo's Chat Room and Real Housewives of Salt Lake City, which is kind of ushering in a rebirth in a way, or at least re-energizing of the Housewives franchise. Do you watch and or like Bravo's Chat Room?
I have watched a lot of it. Unfortunately, and I like I like the ladies. I think it's not going to why it's not going to work for me is just because I'm so dialed in every day on Instagram and Twitter that I'm just wasting my time hearing news stories that I've already heard, and the commentary isn't so on fire that I'm like, whoa, so I love the idea as a quarantine idea. Like I love it's cheap to produce. They're using Skype or whatever they're using, and it's cheap to produce. And it's great that they have a show after Andy. So I'm always up for expanding and trying new things. I just think that for the people that really would watch this show, we already know all of this. Those are who it appeals to, the people that already know all of this. Like there's not been a time where I've turned on that show and I've learned something I didn't know, so that's the only unfortunate part of it is it's not even like the best companion piece to Andy. I mean, if you're going to do that, then I would we'll give Hannah or one of the female things a 30-minute talk show themselves. Why not have it be Bravo Chat Room and have a different Bravo guest and not two guests like Andy, make it one guest, put a female host, and do it a 30-minute that way.
How much? So I only watched 3 episodes of it and they were like the first 3, and then I was like, I get it, like nothing is going on here, and I like all those people, but would it be okay, let me ask you a question. Since you've seen a lot more of it than I have, do they exclusively talk about Bravo stuff, or do they get into like politics? Like do they cover the election?
I mean, lightly. I mean, they don't ignore it, but it's
honestly,
not like, well,
this is what they need to do.
Yeah,
I'm going to reproduce this entire show. Literally, don't talk about Bravo unless it's about like the Real Housewives of Salt Lake City, something like huge happens, or Stassi and Kristen get fired. Okay, like it has to be huge things. Turn it into The View. Like talk about politics. Talk about what's going on in pop culture outside of Bravo. It's interesting to hear Bravo celebrities talk about other celebrities and talk about what music came out that week. Have them cover the new Miley Cyrus album that's coming out. Like, I don't know. I feel like we're oversaturated with Bravo stuff. These are interesting people. Have them talk about interesting stuff that's happening in the world outside of this little niche, and also argue with each other.
There's elements of them trying to do The View, but they're gearing it towards Bravo. So yeah, I mean, opening it up like that would probably make it a lot better. But it's weird too, because I hear a lot of hate on the hosts, or a lot of people. I read a lot of comments of like, I don't get Hannah on this, the people, they're not as familiar with Hannah, or they're like, oh, who's this? And I find that kind of stuff weird, because I'm like, oh, I like Hannah, but I don't like, it's just interesting. Like, you have to then like all these people, all four of these people, and if you don't like one of them, that's a strike against this show.
But that's not how it works on The View. Like, you
not
literally
at all.
hate these people. I mean, except for, of course, Joy Behar and Whoopi, who are.
But I think it's hard to get any real conversation going on a 30-minute show. Like, you get little elements of it, and especially then if you put the restriction of Bravo on it, there's only, and I just feel like, well, it's just, I mean, we cover, you said about it in 2018 when they had Bravo's play-by-play, this was the same show, but with like straight dudes, and it was like, we're bringing the straight dude element. It's hosted by Jerry O'Connell. We got Did
you have a feeler out for that? Like, did you know that was coming down the pike? That feels like something that you would have had a heads up on. Like, did you audition?
Kate Casey mentioned it to me, or reached out to me and said, you should be on this show. But at that time I'm still a nobody, but at the time I was a real nobody, and I didn't really have, like, people in some Facebook groups and stuff knew who I was, but I didn't have like an Instagram based on this or a podcast. And but Kate Casey, like, you'd be perfect on the show. And like, that would have been, but what they did with it, I wasn't like, I think Jerry O'Connell is very funny, and I like him a lot. And he's always been really nice when I met him, but I didn't like the other three guys, and I just would have gone a different way with it,
I mean, so here we are. We're at Salt Lake City. I mean, we are in the year 2020. We're about to be in 2021. And I don't know if they'll have any I doubt they'll have any brand new shows. Who knows? Maybe they will squeak out a brand new show in 2021. But I feel like so far I'm very impressed with Salt Lake City. And I'll have another episode down the pike once I've seen more of it to really unravel.
Like, I feel like a lot of things with quarantine, you're going to see a lot of shows that are kind of like, not half-assed, but like, we got to keep getting that content out. And you're going to see a lot of shows that might not be your favorite seasons of them, especially on Bravo, maybe, but you got to support it because you want these things to keep going. And we all like making shows right now are like having two hands tied behind your back, blindfolded.
Well, so you know what I was thinking about? So here in New York, we are, I hate to bring up the virus and like everything that's going on, but to be real, in New York, and they are currently filming Roni right now. We are, I would say, in another month or so, maybe we'll get a month. I do believe we're going to be in another lockdown.
100%.
Yeah,
but also I don't want to see Leah's opinions on mask wearing on the show.
Mm-hmm. I think they may be completely done filming New Jersey. New York, I can see them being like, okay, we have to finish. We're done in 2 weeks. Like, we need to literally finish filming this in the next 2 to 3. Maybe they can push it to 3 weeks, but like, there's going to be a rush of, unless they want to include, unless they're like, you know what, let's just document what happens. And literally the end of the season will be like going back into lockdown, and like, that's sort of depressing. Like, maybe not. Maybe let's not cover that, and let's at least have the supposed illusion of.
Well, I think that's why Salt Lake really works so far to me, is that you can tell. I think they might have even switched production companies in between filming, because you see a scene on the second episode where they go 4 months earlier for just a couple lines, and I'm like, wow, this has been filming literally for 8 months then.
Yeah, because they had to fire a lot of people. Yeah.
But by the way, but now the product is like, well, if this is the product you get, do that across the board. Like, make it work. Don't rush it. Like, I think we get a very shortened season of OC this year, and like, seeing how the show's going, thank God that we're getting a shortened season, because I really want that to be done as soon as possible, because it's just pulling teeth to watch. Mm-hmm. But you're like, do what's best for the show, not what's best for ad sales. And I think that hopefully Bravo isn't in that tight of a spot, because I think you really get such quality, which gets people talking, which then gets, it's like just, it all feeds into it, but it always starts with the quality of these shows, the content you get. And if you actually have a camera on, eventually something interesting will happen. They did the same thing with Beverly Hills this past season. And that's why it was like one of the better seasons, even with Rinna being insane, is that they filmed a good portion that never made it to air months before we started seeing these episodes.
Yes. Yeah. I mean, how much great stuff can you get in like 12 weeks of filming? Like, you got to really, they used to film, the early days of these shows, they would film for like 6 months. So I'm so mad that you saw NYC Prep. That was the one that I wanted to watch.
Oh, I'd gladly watch it again.
Really?
Oh yeah.
I mean, you would do that?
Oh yeah, of course. I really loved it.
You would do that for me?
Yes, for you. Only for my podcast wife. Yes, I would. I mean, I do think it's a special show for a lot of reasons, and it's just the time period is just hysterical. These kids, like anytime you get kids pretending to be adults and having more money than they should, and then you have it's just a very interesting thing to come from, and also because you have that in the back of your head of where are these kids now.
All right. I love it. Okay. So because I don't know these people. I wouldn't know PJ. What's his name? Who's the guy?
PC.
Okay. I wouldn't know PC if he walked in the store right now. Okay.
That's good. That's a good.
Yeah.
That's
I want to do Where Are They Now? Why do we think this show?
Oh my God. Because I would love to get your brain on a Where Are They Now? Because they have a kid, Sebastian, who has at the time has this kind of long flowing Fabio hair. And he's like this little pubes, just right at puberty. And he's just trying to make out with as many girls as possible. And he'll do this hair flip. And he's this beautiful mane of hair. And then I found his Instagram, and I think he's like a young Republican, and he cut his hair off, but his hair has so much power and he knows it. And he can speak some basic French. So he always tries to pick up girls by speaking basic French and then hair flipping. And it's so hysterical to watch. Like, if I had a time machine, there's one thing of this where there's a girl trying to be a pop star in this, and she sings at her friend's fundraiser, which is just 2 tables at a fancy restaurant. And it's if I had a time machine, I would go back to that night and try to be a patron at that restaurant to see this girl sing. I would use a time machine for no good. Just go back to big Bravo moments, to go back to when Aviva threw her leg. I'd love to be a diner in that area. Could you imagine seeing that with your own eyes?
I could not. I could not. Ryan Bailey, I love you. All right, the next thing we're going to do NYC Prep. I'm excited to watch it. Watch it over the holidays. So Bad It's Good. Tell everybody where to find you, your Patreon, everything.
Hey, you guys know So Bad It's Good with Ryan Bailey. I've been on here a couple times. If it's your thing, great. These are long form episodes. There's timestamps, so you can skip around. There's a couple multiple interviews. I will be switching up the format here, I think, in a couple weeks, but it'll still be the same me and the same interviews. It's going to be a different way of working. Instagram, So Bad It's Good with Ryan Bailey. Just a lot of funny memes. I love reach out to me. I love talking to everybody on there. Recapping this season of Potomac, Below Deck. You got Don't Be Tardy, which our podcasts of Don't Be Tardy are a half hour longer than the actual show. So, I mean, you can just hear me be fascinated, and I'll have guests on there and stuff, but you'll just hear me fascinated about that there's an actual show on about it's like the Seinfeld of reality shows. It's a show about nothing.
Guys, thank you for listening. You can follow me, JessXNYC, follow the show account, Hot Takes Deep Dives, and Ryan and I will see you very soon with NYC Prep. I'm excited. I'm excited to meet PC and Sebastian and all your little friends.
And especially because you have a New York take on things, I cannot wait to see.
Yeah, I'm really narrowing in on the New York, Long Island. Yeah, I want a reality show. Did they film one in my apartment? I can recap that. This is what I'm interested in.
Yeah, that'd be so easy. Yeah.
Thank you, guys.